Hello everyone, my name is Stюарт Ротгессер. I'm speaking to you from sunny South Africa in Johannesburg.
Итак, добрый день, меня зовут Стюарт Ротгессер, и я говорю с вами из Йоханнесбурга, из Южной Африки.
And I would like to thank Artem for inviting me to this webinar. Artem and I both sit on the Storytelling in Organizations board, and we are the first members outside of the US to sit on that board. And so that's how we know each other. I started a company about 6 years ago that focuses on collecting stories. We work at the nexus between storytelling, communications, and research. We collect stories so that they can be used on platforms including content production, research, facilitation, and training. And we've been doing this for the last 6 years, as I said. Myself, I am an anthropologist. I'm a story collector and a communicator, and I'm very interested in the way that these combine. So we use real-life stories for employee engagement purposes. We do leadership story coaching. We do internal campaigns, communications campaigns, using stories, and we also use stories for change communications. And as we go along, we've built up a network of researchers, story collectors, and one of our key passions is teaching people how to collect stories. So today, I want to teach you a very practical skill, how to collect stories, how to build trust, how to build what we call the container. The container is the place that will allow the person that you're speaking with to share some of their most intimate details. They'll share their thoughts, their feelings, what they really think about the organization they're working in. What are their concerns,
И наш основной профиль — это сбор историй сотрудников, где бы сотрудники честно рассказывали, как они себя чувствуют в компании с другими коллегами. Это очень важно для сотрудников кадрового отдела, для тех, кто проводит тренинги, кто занимается коучингом. Потому что нам очень важно именно знать, что человек реально чувствует. И главное — наладить
half a day, 3 hours for someone collecting one story. And we do that because we want to get the details and the texture. Often we don't know where the story is. We may have been told, we want you to collect a story about one of our employees who worked their way up in the company. But when we actually sit down with them, we realize that the story is quite different. And so we need to be open to that. This is an interactive webinar. It's a practical webinar. I'm going to be modeling for you in a few moments some techniques on how to collect stories. So please feel free to
как правда это можно осуществлять, что мы делаем. Если у вас появятся вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите.
Put questions and comments, and I can see them. Unfortunately, I don't speak Russian, so they'll have to be translated. But in a few moments,
надо, я думаю, мне вопросы переведут, если можете, пишите по-английски.
I'm going to be asking you to give me feedback on what you see, and so it's very important that we do that. This is part of a much larger course that we teach in story collecting, and it is and I'll show you more information about that later.
Часть слайдов, которые вы увидите, это как раз те слайды, которые мы используем всегда при обучении сбору историй. У вас уже было сегодня и вчера очень много вебинаров. И, безусловно, вы знаете, что сторителлинг очень важен, что важно собирать истории. А мы посмотрим именно о том, как собирать истории. Очень практический семинар, я надеюсь, для вас будет. Поэтому обязательно попробуйте. Очень многое нужно сделать, но и также подготовки к интервью. И то, как вы подготовите, будет, собственно, определять, удастся вам использовать историю или нет. У нас есть
клиенты,
клиенты, которые говорят, что ой, хотим собрать истории, вот вам, пожалуйста, наш сотрудник. А когда мы смотрим, оказывается, что это будет очень непросто, потому что сотрудник, наверное, не хочет разговаривать, или он стесняется, или она. И что, может быть, у говорящего есть какие-то сложности, в принципе, с производством звуков, или нет желания рассказывать, или нет вообще какой-то истории. И нам на этапе подготовки важно, если есть вообще какая-то история. Обычно это история какого-то трансформации, либо истории героя. Подходим мы к человеку, рассказываем, что пытаемся выяснить, может ли человек рассказать историю. В принципе, есть ли она у него та история, которую клиент нам сообщил, что хотелось бы ее получить. И смотрим, сможет ли хорошо ее рассказать. И потом мы должны уже понять, что человек хочет рассказывать. И поэтому здесь нужно быть акцентом, что рассказать, где эта история будет размещена. Мы очень часто работаем, у нас есть авторы, с теми, кто работает в цифровых медиа, в компаниях, связанных с интернет-технологиями. И нам важно поэтому рассказать тем, кто будет рассказывать историю, где будет размещена история, будет ли какое-то видео, анимация, будет ли доступна эта история по всему миру или только для компании. И многие люди недооценивают мощь интернета, особенно те, кто, например, не очень, может быть, грамотен в этом отношении. И частным сотрудникам нам приходится очень четко объяснять, как далеко эта информация может быть распространена. Понятно? Если вы работаете с какими-то иностранными языками, либо, может быть, местными, пожалуйста, подготовьтесь, чтобы у вас был переводчик. Потому что обычно лучше собирать на языке родном для человека. Многие, конечно, говорят на других языках, но, может быть, ему будет комфортнее сказать на их родном языке. Старайтесь сделать так, чтобы команда, которая занимается записью истории, была максимально небольшой.
And then thirdly, and this is very important to building trust and to making the storyteller feel comfortable, is the location. We always like to try and find someone who has a quiet spot where they feel comfortable. This could be their home, preferably, or their workplace. We prefer the home because in the home we can see many things that tell us about the person. For example, they may have a trophy or some family photographs. If they have these, we can refer to them while we're collecting their stories. And again, this is out of our control. We've had situations where family members will walk in and sit in on story collecting because they find it very interesting. Often in communities, other people will come and say, who are these people, why are they here, what are they looking for? And all of this actually makes for a very nice atmosphere and often makes the storytellers feel more comfortable. So the location is important and it should be a place that is familiar to them. It also has to be a place that is as quiet as possible. If you're recording audio or video, you want to make sure that there is no wind or traffic coming by. So these things all have to be taken into account. So a large part of story collecting is the preparation and the consulting that we do beforehand. And all of this will help you to build this trust with your storyteller so that on the day when you do arrive, most of the groundwork is already done. So I want to stop here and ask if there are any questions at this point.
Может быть, на этом этапе уже есть какие-то вопросы. Если есть, пожалуйста, задавайте, что касается подготовки и какой-то этической составляющей. Если есть вопросы, пожалуйста, напишите.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to model one aspect of our story collectors training, which is body
И
language.
сейчас смоделировать
And
этот
for
аспект
that,
тоже,
I'm going to
который
ask
важен при записи
my
истории. Это
beautiful wife, Miss Deborah Weaver, to come and join us.
язык тела. Я
And we're
хочу
going to push the screen
проассистировать
back.
мою жену мне.
And what I would like you to do in this exercise is I would like you to watch
Посмотрите.
and watch specifically me.
Наблюдайте
You
за
may not be able
мной.
to hear what the story is being gathered,
Вам,
but
скорее
that's
всего,
not so important.
будет не
What's most
слышно
important is to
саму
watch
историю.
my
Это
body
здесь
language.
не
I'm going to
важно.
model for you
Здесь важно
twice.
посмотреть
The first time I'm going to model for you
язык
the way
тела.
not to
И
build
первый
rapport, not to collect
вариант
a
будет,
story.
я
And the
покажу,
second
как
time,
делать не надо.
I'm
А
going to
второй
ask,
раз
I'm going to model for
я
you
вам покажу,
how to
как
collect
надо
a story
себя
and how to do it
вести,
well.
когда
So
собираешь историю.
your task
Описываешь
right now
его.
is just simply to
И
watch and
поэтому
to focus
ваша
on me,
сейчас задача
not on Deborah, and
сфокусироваться
watch what
на
I
мне,
do with
смотреть
my
на
body, watch
меня,
what I don't
на
do,
то, что я
etc.
делаю,
And we'll do
какие
this just for
жесты.
about 30 seconds, and then I'll come back and get your feedback.
Через 30 секунд я к вам вернусь и жду от вас отклика.
Okay, so okay, so we're going to start now. And again, focus on me and watch what I do and what I don't do. So Deborah, tell me about your story.
So, as I was saying earlier, there was the incident with
Sorry, just one second. Okay, yeah.
my business partner and I, where we were kind of at a disagreement, and we decided, no, we were going to close our existing company, and we decided to go to mediation.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, the mediation was quite difficult, and it was difficult because both of us were very good friends, and we've been friends for a very long time. So we decided to go into this mediation, and it was very difficult, and yeah, and that's kind of what we decided.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I hope you're all able to see that. Can you tell me, what did you notice about my body language?
Как я себя вел в плане
What
жестов?
did you see there that I was doing that you thought was not the right way to collect a story,
Я делала что-то
or
неправильно
not the right way to interact with
в
someone?
истории Деборы. Были ли неправильные движения?
So tell me what you saw in the body language. What did I do and what did I not do?
Напишите конкретно, что я делала не так.
Okay, so someone says story collector is not interested in the person
Некоторые пишут о
opposite
том,
him.
что я явно был не заинтересован в человеке, который
He's
рассказывает
not
мне
interested
историю.
at all. How can you tell that just from my body language? How can you
Вы
tell that I
поняли,
was
что я
not
не
interested?
заинтересован. Как я это
What was
показала
I
своим
doing? What was the
телом,
position?
своими жестами?
What were the physical cues? What was the body language that
Какие
showed you that I was uninterested?
движения выдали во мне скуку и незаинтересованность? Напишите, пожалуйста.
I yawned. Yes, absolutely. That's
Да,
right.
я
Very
зевал.
good. So someone said,
Точно.
I yawned. So many things, interruptions. There were lots of interruptions.
Да,
You
я
could have
часто
seen that I picked up
отвлекался. Я даже телефон
my
взял.
cell phone at one time. I also picked up a pen another time, and I pretended to write.
Потом взял все,
I
что
also picked up the
писать.
clock at
Потом
one
я
point.
взял часы
And
даже.
somebody says, I crossed my hands. Yes, I went
Да,
like
и у меня
this.
была вот эта замкнутая
This signifies
поза.
closed body language,
Да,
and this
закрытость.
all
Спасибо, что
crossing the
написали
legs,
об этом.
and both of those show the person that we're interested. Remember, a large part of our communication is physical communication, non-verbal. And so what we need to do as story collectors is show, as I'm doing now with my hands, that we are actually interested in them, we're open, and we're not judgmental. Somebody said I forced Deborah to speak faster. Yes, very good. I went like this, saying, come on, hurry up. And that's a terrible, terrible thing. I showed that I was short of time. Yes, I even went like this one time. Very good. So, you've picked up a lot of the points there. And of course, there are some more. The other thing I wanted you to notice is all the things that I had in between. So we had a whole bunch of papers, clock. We also had some stationery, and this was placed in between myself and Deborah. And this again is another way of shortening the communication between us. You want to have a clear space, nothing between you and them. You want to have as little technology as possible, especially if you're interacting with people that are not as wealthy. And you certainly don't want to have a clock in the way. Okay, great. Now let's model for you the way that it can be done, the way that one wants to use body language in a positive way to collect stories. So I'm going to ask Deborah again to tell me a bit of a story. And once again, focus on me and look at my
рассказывать историю, но нам здесь главное, чтобы вы смотрели на меня и на то, как я двигаюсь, что я делаю.
So I was explaining to you that what happened in the past few years with my business was that I started this partnership with a very good friend of mine, which was actually quite a bad idea, because in the end we decided that we couldn't really work together, and we decided to close the business. And so we had to go to, and we also decided to go to mediation together.
Why did you decide that you had to close the business?
Well, we were struggling to work together. We had differences in our working styles. We had differences in our opinions. We were having too much conflict, and we just didn't have the same vision for what we wanted with the business.
What was the vision that you wanted? What did you want to see?
So I wanted to grow a big organization and collaborate with other artists and people, and she really wanted to work independently and on her own. And our partnership ended up growing very quickly and became a business very quickly. And we kind of always sat with this disjuncture of wanting different things.
Interesting. So once you came to the disjuncture, what happened then?
Well, it was very difficult, and because not only we decided, we were having conflict, but we also had this business together, but we had this long 20-year friendship that was now under jeopardy.
So how long was this friendship? You said 20 years.
Yeah, the friendship was 20 years.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much for demonstrating. So, what did you notice there? What did you notice about my body language? That was different. So, somebody writes, you try to adjust your body language to Deborah. Absolutely. So, this is a technique that you also learn in sales. Repeating the movements. As you saw, Deborah was doing a lot of her hands like this. So, I was doing that. She also pulled her hair. I don't have long enough hair to do that. But what you can't see on the screen was that I was also mirroring her body language with my legs. So her legs were straight next to each other, and I was doing the same. You were engaged into the story, repeating her body language. Yes, active listening, clarifying questions, and eye contact. Yes, so some people think that collecting a story is only about simply being quiet and listening. Actually, active listening is asking questions, pushing the story along, finding out
продвигать
clarification. That
даже,
way, the
надо
storyteller
помогать
sees that you're interested in them and they want to tell you more.
тому, кто
Eye contact
рассказывает.
is essential.
Очень важен зрительный
I
контакт.
maintain eye
Да,
contact the
я
whole
старался
time. I was also
все
smiling,
время, я
nodding,
улыбался, да,
absolutely. So
я
using the
кивал.
head to nod to show that I
Таким
understand,
образом, я показывал, что я всё
and using the same gestures. So these are just some of the body
Да,
language
это
tricks that one
такие
uses in story
невербальные
collecting, and there are many
хитрости,
more, of
которые
course.
помогают нам.
And
Их гораздо
unfortunately, you
больше.
weren't able to see the lower part of the body, but that was also mirroring her body.
Да, и вы видели только верхнюю
And
часть
so
тела, но вот
these are
ногами я
obviously
тоже
skills
двигалась
that
примерно так же, как и
can
двигалась.
be learned.
И это те навыки,
And
которые
some
можно
of the other things, besides keeping your body language open and mirroring the
Главное
storyteller's
здесь
body language,
открытость.
keeping your arms and your legs uncrossed, nodding your head,
Нужно переключить
clearing the space of
внимание.
objects,
Нужно,
is
чтобы
also
не было
to
между вами
do simple
каких-то
things like try and dress like your storyteller. So I'm not going to dress in a suit and tie if I'm going to collect a story from a farm worker. And similarly, I'm not going to dress in jeans if I'm going to collect a story from a CEO. Also, there's certain cultural points of view. In certain African cultures, making eye contact all the time, especially if you're younger than the person that you're collecting a story from, is considered extremely rude. And one has to drop one's eyes from time to time. In other cultures, facing another person with your feet is also considered rude. So it's very important to find out what is culturally appropriate. We also recommend bringing a gift. This could be something as simple as a drink or some chocolates. That's just because you're coming to collect someone's story, and so it's good to actually give something energetically in exchange. As you may have noticed as well, I was completely free of technology in the second version. There were no clocks, there was no cell phone. And this is especially important if you're collecting stories from people that are perhaps in a lower socio-demographic, is not to come in with big cameras and or to come in with fancy cell phones, especially at the beginning. Try and first build rapport and trust with them. And the second point is not to try and bring in too many people to the meeting, right? Because if you have a camera crew of guys with all the equipment, it can be quite intimidating. So try and keep it as simple as possible. A little note about technology. These days, smartphones are perfect for recording audio. You want to record the audio because you may forget something. It also allows you to focus on the storyteller and not have to take notes. The only notes that we take are timestamps. Oh, at minute 3:31, she said something very interesting. Let's go back and look at that. Remember to put your phone on flight mode so that it doesn't go off. And try and sketch out the story with the person. Try and find your story's arc and structure. So if it's a hero's journey, where is the conflict? How did they resolve it? What did they learn from it? How have they been transformed, etc. Eye contact we've spoken about, very important. And then there are various apps to transcribe. So, if you have 3 hours of audio recording, you don't really want to be sitting through, but there are quite a few apps that are free. For Russian, you can use Google has Google Translate, which will translate directly into other languages as well. And we can give you some more information about the apps that work well. But a regular smartphone usually has a record function on it. If you're going to be recording for video and you want to pin something to the lapel, that often is quite scary for people, and so it may interrupt.
Лучше, конечно, использовать маленький микрофон, но помните, что такие...
Before we move into some of the ethics, I want to, because this is very important, and I've just sketched a couple of them very briefly here. In our course, we actually spend about a full session on ethics because it gets quite complex and complicated. But basically, the storyteller has certain rights, and these rights are to stop at any time. So even though you may be on deadline and you have organized an employee focus group, employee engagement focus group. At any point in that focus group, someone could say, actually, I'm no longer comfortable. I want to be
Либо,
excused from
например,
this. Or if you
договорились
conducting
с
an interview for a
сотрудниками,
case study,
и вас
at any
сразу
point,
несколько собралось.
the person
Любой
can
человек в
say,
любой момент может
please
сказать,
strike that from the record. I no longer
я
want to
больше
say that. And
не хочу
that's their right.
И любая часть
So
истории
even
может быть
after
просто
publication, they can
убрана
withdraw
из
their consent.
истории, даже
And
после
of course, this is
опубликования.
not
Просто
often
если
done, but it is
рассказывающий говорит, что
difficult.
нет, не хочу, чтобы
They can insist on anonymity.
также рассказывающий
And in our
может
course, we
настоять
teach the difference
на
between
анонимности.
confidentiality and anonymity. And anonymity becomes extremely important when
Анонимность
people are telling stories in an environment in which they are located. And they can also insist on knowing where is their story going. And this is what I alluded to in the preparations beforehand. What are the channels, who are the audiences, and what are the purposes of these stories?
Рассказывающий должен знать, с какой целью
Finally, they
для
can also
какой
insist
аудитории
on
как будет
getting
использована его история.
a sign-off of the story. So it may be that they want to see, show me the video that you're making, and I want to actually input into it, which is a very powerful and collaborative process, which can be very successful and can actually add to the story. If you take your story back to them and have them input, this is very useful, especially for employee engagement, where we do research and we come up with a research report and say, this is what the employees are saying about the organizational culture or certain issues within an organization. We feed the report back to them and then get their input a second time before finalizing the report. And of course, always a good thing to complete the loop is to give them a copy of the final story, remembering that they may not have necessarily access to data to watch it on YouTube, or they may need to have the story on a DVD or some other accessible format for them. So there are also some issues when it comes to children and when they tell stories as children, which are quite different from adults. But as I said, these are explored in more detail.
Но это отдельная тема.
Here's a great example of a personal story that's used for values work from Anglo-American, the mining company, where they collected a story of this man and spoke about the success of his. Again, short, simple, but extremely powerful.
История успеха, очень короткая история.
So I want to open the floor now to some questions. We have just a few minutes left of the webinar.
Пару минут,
and please feel free to ask questions again in the sidebar there. Questions about anything from technology to ethics to body language, building rapport, trust, what we do with stories, how to collect them, record them, etc. So there's a question here, what kind of stories do you collect?
Какие истории мы собираем?
So we've collected stories for a variety of clients.
Истории для разных клиентов наших.
One of them is a tourism client that wanted stories about a certain tourism route. And this was the west coast of South Africa. And this route was not a very popular route. And they wanted to push travelers up this route. So what we did was we went to different small towns along the route and we found interesting people. We actually ran storytelling evenings where the community came out and told fictional stories, real life stories. And from that, we identified certain people based on demographics, which is another interesting part. So you don't want to be all white men telling a story or Asian women, etc., or all people in the age of 30 to 40. If you're having a project with 5 different stories, you want to share the demographics of your storytellers. So we identified the storytellers from these evenings, and then we went to their homes and we collected stories about the place. Some of them were myths about the towns, some of them were the histories of the towns. These were all put onto a website that a traveler can follow the route. As they follow them back, out from each town comes a story along with photographs, and that encourages them their interest in the area. That was one really rewarding contract. Another contract was for a fishing company that wanted to tell the story of an employee who had worked her way up in the company. And it was a story of women's empowerment, a story of being able to better yourself. And this was used to inspire other employees to do the same. So we collected that story on video. And then we've also collected stories for leaders. So when leaders want to change the strategy of a or they want to develop a new strategy and they need buy-in. And so I'll just briefly relate one of those stories to you. This was a story of a CEO of a destination management company. And he was changing the strategy and he needed the buy-in of the member organizations. And so at the annual general meeting, there were about 200 different organizations. These are everything from hotels to wine farms, to drivers, to tourism guides. He told a story that was about himself as a young engineer in his previous career, and how he believed that he could actually make changes when he was working at a nuclear power plant. And he saw that there was a better way of doing things, and he tried to work it out by himself, and he kept getting a brick wall. He kept hitting a wall where he couldn't go any further. Only when he consulted with the older engineers who'd been there for 20 years, together were they able to find a solution. And so he told the story at this meeting of membership, and without any introduction. And then he explained to them, I'm going to need your help for this organization to move in a better strategy. I'm going to need your advice.
Мне тоже нужна ваша помощь.
Только вместе мы сможем. And he got a resounding success. People
и в итоге
and he got buy-in for
коллеги
his strategic direction.
Просто аплодировали ему.
And so he used a personal story that had nothing to do with the subject
там
to plant the seed that collaboration was key.
Она
I have a question. Do you use a script questionnaire to interview, or do you have it flexible depending on the speaker?
Если у вас специальный
Just keeping in mind. So no, I don't use a script at all. As I said, the client will say to us, this is a story about X, and we will go and we will see. And sometimes it won't become like that. What I use is I use a story arc. I usually use the hero's journey. And so there's something, and we sometimes spend half an hour waiting to find out what is the hero's journey for this particular person. Once we have it, it's quite simple. And then we can put out, we say to them, for example, what was the call to action? What was the conflict? How did you overcome it? What did you learn from it? And if you had to do things differently, what would you do now? So that's a really important part at the end, is to say, if you had to do things differently, what would you do? Because it allows the storyteller to reflect backwards on the story. Right? You often take them into that moment, and when you need them to come out with their knowledge of today, what is a piece that comes afterwards? So we don't use a script. Sometimes this is challenging because you need to get sign-off from the client, and sometimes you're on the road. So then you have to email the client and say, look, this is the story. Can we go ahead with this? And usually it works fine. This is the key difference, and I've written an article which I'll share with you about this, between story collecting and storytelling. We don't know. Most advertising agencies will sit and they have a particular idea that they want to put across, and their copywriters will put out a particular story, right? They'll make it up. We don't know where this is going, so we have to be open enough and intuitive enough to pick up on the narrative thread. We have to be both open and intuitive. And sometimes it can be also quite exhausting because you're sitting there for hours. It can be hot, and you're not sure where the narrative thread is. So it's quite an ordeal. I'll just wait and see. Okay, so you're very welcome. This was just a small taste of this, and of course we run two courses at the moment. One is a 2-day course, Story Collectors Professional,
курс для
where we look at more of the body language, building rapport, ethical issues, technology issues. And the other course we run is what we call digital storytelling, where we do all of Story Collectors, plus we do photography, social media, and writing up impact stories for the web. So if you would like to know more about this, please do get in touch with us. And we can be reached at, I can be reached on the email there on your screen.
Вы можете с нами
And thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Большое спасибо, я был очень рад представить вам свое видение.